Hello and welcome back to another episode of Majlis and Markets with your host, Hassan Jivraj. Majlis and Markets brings you insightful conversations with influential leaders in Islamic and global markets. As usual, before we begin today, remember to like, share and subscribe to our podcast. Get in touch with us also by sending an email at hassan@majlisandmarkets.com and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. In today's episode, we're talking about Islamic finance in Kazakhstan. Since 2009, Kazakhstan has been integrating Islamic finance into its economy to attract foreign investment and diversify its financial sector. Leading this effort is the Astana International Financial Center, or AIFC, which aims to make Kazakhstan a financial bridge between East and West. With its strategic location and a growing Muslim population, Kazakhstan is keen to tap into the $4 trillion global Islamic finance market. Today we're joined by Madina Tukalova, Head of Islamic Finance at AIFC Authority. With over a decade of experience, Madina has been a key player in advancing Islamic finance in Kazakhstan. In our conversation, Madina shares her insights on Kazakhstan's journey in Islamic finance and what it means for the region. Madina Tukalova, welcome to Majlis and Markets. Great to have you on the podcast.
Assalamu alaikum. Hi. Thank you for the invitation.
No, it's my pleasure. Madina, I've followed you for the last couple of years. Actually, even before that, I followed the developments and I've also followed the developments of Islamic finance in Kazakhstan. And I think given your background, working at the National Bank of Kazakhstan and your other experience and your academic experience and your experience in Islamic finance, particularly in this region, is really fascinating. But before we get into what you're doing today and your thoughts on the market and everything, could you give our listeners your early life or your background?
Okay. So once again, thank you a lot. It's a pleasure to talk about, recent and past developments of Islamic finance in our region and Kazakhstan. So I'm in the industry starting from 2009. Then Kazakhstan adopted the first law on the development of Islamic finance. And after that, we have long story of different amendments in the legislation and also establishment of new Islamic financial entities. So I started my work just after graduation with the agency. So agency on the development of Regional Financial Center of Almaty. So it used to be Regional Financial Center of Almaty previously. So, and one of the key pillar of this financial center was the development of Islamic finance. And we very closely worked with Kazakhstan regulators, first of all, to develop the first legislation. After that, to bring more Islamic financial institutions here in Kazakhstan. So what we did, we first of all, after we adopted a law on Islamic finance and banking, we worked very closely with Al Hilal Abu Dhabi in 2010, they established a subsidiary Islamic bank here in Kazakhstan. So after that, we made amendments in order to develop Islamic leasing, ijara here in Kazakhstan, takaful insurance, and also to develop Islamic capital market here in Kazakhstan. And in 2011, Development Bank of Kazakhstan issued the first quasi-sovereign sukuk on Malaysian stock exchange, and also it was issuance here in Kazakhstan stock exchange. So It was like, a big journey. So I started my work with first with this agency. After this agency became a part of the mega regulator in Kazakhstan in 2011. It was a National Bank of Kazakhstan. And National Bank of Kazakhstan, it's like, central bank, which responsibilities include development of financial market regulation as well as monetary policy. So we develop Islamic finance. So we work very closely with main stakeholders, governmental bodies. We develop different roadmaps to develop industry here in Kazakhstan. And as a result, we have few financial institutions in Kazakhstan, two Islamic banks, Al Hilal, which is now a subsidiary of Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, and also Zaman Bank. It's our local bank. It used to be a regional conventional bank. After that, we developed a legislation to convert conventional banks on conversion from their conventional banks to Islamic, and Zaman Bank from the conventional regional bank, they have been converted to Islamic Bank, and still they are providing some Islamic financial services here in Kazakhstan. And also here in Kazakhstan, we have two Ijara companies, Al Finance and Kazakhstan Ijara Company. They're also well known and very developed here in Kazakhstan. So this is like kind of story of the development of Islamic finance in Kazakhstan while I worked at National Bank of Kazakhstan, and also National Bank as a regulator was a member of IFSB, IOFI, SIBAFI. Also, we very closely work with the Islamic Development Bank. And I think in 2015 years, we developed Islamic Finance Country Report. So, and by the way, right now, in a few weeks, we are presenting the second version of Islamic Finance Country Report, together again with the Islamic Development Bank and AIC. So, as AIC, when I started work, in AIC, we also were doing a lot to develop a market together with new stakeholders, together with also companies here in Kazakhstan. So we understand that Islamic finance is one of the key priority of AIC and overall of Kazakhstan.
Fantastic. And Medina, before you joined the Central Bank or National Bank of Kazakhstan, when did you first hear about Islamic finance, and how did you hear about Islamic finance?
So right after my graduation, I started to work at the agency for the development of the regional financial center of Almaty city, and it was one of the direction that this financial center used to develop. So, and this is the first time then I heard about Islamic finance, about Islamic finance industry. And it was so interesting for me, just fresh after university, because I didn't hear about Islamic finance before, unfortunately before. So I started to learn more, and I was happy then my bosses and management decided that I should be in the team which are developing Islamic finance that time. So because previously I was a member of another team, to be honest, it was a capital development team, but I was so interested in Islamic finance because it's first of all something new. It was something interesting for me, and after that then I learned more and more about Islamic finance, about the principles of Islamic finance, how Islamic finance can develop the real economy of our country. I decided that I should be the part of the industry.
Right. And at this point, you didn't travel to like other countries where Islamic finance was quite prominent, like the UAE or Malaysia, right? You didn't
Not,
travel there before.
not yet. Like I think my first knowledge, I mean, deep knowledge about Islamic finance started with, do you remember Islamic Research and Training Institute?
Yes.
It's like, it's ISDB group member country. Now they call it Islamic Development Bank Institute. So IRT was very active in arranging different seminars and workshops on Islamic finance.
Right.
So, and my first deep knowledge about Islamic finance started with IRT seminar in Malaysia, together with Bank Negara Malaysia. So
Right.
I think it was 2009.
Okay. So about 15 years ago.
Yes,
Right. Right. And then from that period, you thought like this is you want to be part of this movement of making Islamic finance a key part of Kazakhstan's financial framework.
definitely. Like, yeah, I understand, like, that this is for our country, but it's like, in our region, it's a new direction. And we have to work, like, on introducing Islamic finance to people, to governmental bodies. And that's why, like, I thought that it would be great, like, to work together with stakeholders in order to develop Islamic finance in Kazakhstan, in order to increase financial, like, increase the knowledge about Islamic finance among the Kazakhstan people.
What's interesting, I think, also is like I think the Islamic Development Bank and some of the subsidiary companies or the entities within the Islamic Development Bank, so the Islamic Cooperation for Private Sector Development (ICD), they're very active in Kazakhstan, right? So the Islamic Development Bank and other entities, like I think you usually mentioned AOFI and Sibafi from Bahrain, are
Yes,
active.
yes, we are. It's like, Kazakhstan is, of course, a member country of Islamic Development Bank. And of course, they have like, different mega projects here in Kazakhstan. But also, we very closely cooperate to develop Islamic finance. So, for example, like, in last year, starting from the last year, we finally did a market research to understand the demand on Islamic finance in Kazakhstan. Unfortunately, we didn't organize this kind of service before. So, but now, like, we definitely know, like, the real demand of Islamic financial products here in Kazakhstan, and it's really huge. I mean, people need more Islamic financial and investment products. So after that, like, part two, we decided to develop Islamic Finance Country Report, and we hope to present it during the Astana Finance Days on 6th of September.
Fantastic. Medina, one thing I wanted to ask you about Islamic finance, I agree with you. Like, there's a lot of opportunities for Islamic finance in Central Asia and places like Kazakhstan. The financial sector is still finding its way, and there's been a lot of activity over the past, say, decade or so in this region. But there was a report, Medina, by S&P earlier this year. I think it was in February, and they wrote a report about Islamic finance in Central Asia, and they focused on, I think, countries like Kazakhstan. And what they said is that, yes, there is a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of potential, but there's still challenges, be it with regulation or the low demand, which I think is connected, or which they said was connected to the lack of awareness. How much of lack of awareness is a challenge for the industry in Kazakhstan?
I think the lack of awareness, it's not only the, like, challenge for Kazakhstan, it's a worldwide problem. And that's why we understand it. That's why we are trying to work to organize different events to increase this awareness, different, like, training seminars, business breakfast, and other, for example, other opportunity for people to know more about Islamic finance. Just recently, together with main stakeholders of the industry here in Kazakhstan, we established Association on Islamic Finance and Business. Again, the main idea of this association is to increase this, financial awareness on Islamic finance. So I totally agree with S&P, and we understand that this is challenge. But what we should do, we should again only work, only teach together with the key stakeholders. This is the way. And another important I think direction is to increase number of Islamic financial institutions. So because you see, then you are trying to teach, for example, people, and you're talking about Islamic finance, and they agree that it is necessary to, and they're ready to work with Islamic financial institutions. The next question is, okay, where I have to go to, to get my finance and to invest. And then you have a limited number of financial institutions. Unfortunately, it means it's a kind of no way what they should do. They are ready to go, but you haven't a number of financial institutions. So that's why, in AIFC, we have conditions, favorable conditions for Islamic financial institutions, and we have regulatory framework for Islamic banks, for Islamic insurance companies, and also I think which is more important here in our region, we have a regulation for non-banking institutions, or we call them providing Islamic finance companies. It's something between the microfinance companies and big financial companies. So they can do any kind of activities except accepting deposits. So, and another difference of AIFC from some other financial centers, that our financial institutions, they can provide their activities to the residents of Kazakhstan in any currency, including local currency. And comparing Islamic banks or providing Islamic finance companies to conventional companies, we are blessed because Islamic banks and Islamic non-banking companies of AIFC, they can provide their services to residents of Kazakhstan, individuals or corporates in any currency, including local currency, tenge. So conventional banks, for example, they can work only with the corporates and only in foreign currency. That means it's it's a special act signed between regulator of Kazakhstan, Central Bank of Kazakhstan, and the regulator of AIFC. That means that Central Bank of Kazakhstan and regulator of Kazakhstan, they're blessing that, okay, AIFC can develop, Islamic finance in our country.
Fantastic. And Medina, you mentioned AIFC and given your position of AIFC. Maybe you could tell our listeners what exactly is AIFC?
So Astana International Financial Center is a financial center based in Kazakhstan, in our capital Astana. And it's based on English law system, and we have our own legislation, we have our own regulator, and we based on constitutional law signed by the president. So the idea of AIFC is to develop a financial market and attract investment in Kazakhstan. Also, in AIFC, we have our own stock exchange and court including English judges, and also we have international arbitration center. So And Islamic finance is one of the strategic directions of AIC. So also we are developing digital asset industry, fintech, asset management, and green finance is also one of our priorities. So we are trying to provide favorable conditions for their investment companies and financial companies, so they could feel they can provide their services, they can do investments in Kazakhstan through our financial center.
It sounds very similar to the Dubai International Financial Center. Would you say that?
Yes, but again, the difference is that our financial companies, they can provide the activities to Kazakhstan people, I mean to the residents of Kazakhstan. So it's a difference between our financial center and others. So it means you can work with any type of companies or even retail from Kazakhstan.
Right. And what makes the AIFC? I think you've mentioned some points, but why should financial institutions around the world consider setting up in AIFC or in Kazakhstan for that matter?
For example, they would like to invest in Central Asia, or CIS countries, so they can, because of our law system, because of the separate and independent regulator and legislation, it more easier, it more safe for the company to start business through AIC.
Right.
Also, we again, as I mentioned, we have our own court, and also we have we have our, we are trying to develop our stock exchange. We have kind of emerging capital market, and the main reason why companies could choose AIFC, it's our special tax and currency regime. So no for financial services, no VAT and no corporate tax till 2066.
Right. And Islamic finance is a key part of AIFC, right?
Yes, it's one of the key part of the AIFC, and so it means that Islamic financial institutions, Islamic banks, takaful companies, asset management companies, they can first provide their activities in in a jurisdiction with world-class regulation standards, then with a special tax regime, and after that they can do it for their residents of Kazakhstan. Because sometimes we have different companies, they're coming from from abroad or other financial centers, and they're thinking that they could work only within the financial center. It means you can provide your services, financial services, only to the residents or participants of this financial center. So in AIC we have another field, financial field, so you can work with any company, I mean abroad or Kazakhstan.
Right. And Medina, is there some challenges? I think you mentioned before, right? Like different banks and different entities can operate onshore in AIFC, but from my understanding, is it that Islamic windows are allowed in the AIFC, but they're not allowed onshore in Kazakhstan?
So Islamic windows, yes, they are banned in Kazakhstan. So we have no regulation for Islamic windows in Kazakhstan. That means that conventional banks from Kazakhstan, they cannot open their Islamic window. But interesting part that just recently, I think 2 months ago, deputy chairman of the Agency for the Regulation and Development of Financial Market, he mentioned that they are ready to work with the stakeholders in order to develop legislation for Islamic windows. And I think this is also a good opportunity. But from other points, it means that the regulator should have a very proper, transparent regulation, and it should have a special team for to look after their Islamic windows. So in AIFC, we have regulation for Islamic windows. It means that, first of all, if you establish conventional bank in Kazakhstan, that means that you can open Islamic window. Another opportunity for you, if you are from jurisdictions with which allows Islamic windows, for example, from Malaysia, a conventional bank from Malaysia, and from Pakistan, and they have regulation for Islamic windows. It means that this conventional bank could open a branch as an Islamic window in AIC. And again, a good opportunity to open it because it's a branch. You can open it with no capital requirements.
Right. And have we seen a lot of institutions from the GCC or Malaysia or Pakistan enter AIFC to this point?
We have companies that are interesting. In AIFC, in Central Asia overall. So that's why, for them, we are doing this Islamic Finance Country Report, and that's why we organized this survey report. But I think, first of all, we should, develop our local market. It's, very important. Then you're, big fish from abroad, and you are entering new market. First of all, you have to understand how is local market will develop or not. So if yes, of course you are ready to work with these local financial companies in order to start your business. So that means it's my own opinion, but I think before we see big companies big names from abroad here in AIC, before we should develop our local market, we should have more local Islamic banks or more local Islamic financial companies.
We had Abdullah Kurbanov a few episodes ago. He's the co-founder and was the CEO of Alif.
Yes, I know him very well from Alif.
Very nice gentleman, and he gave us a nice breakdown of Islamic finance in Tajikistan and indeed across the Central Asian region. And one of the questions I asked him is that fintech is a big part of not just Islamic finance, but in banking in itself, right? So I have a question. It's kind of twofold to you. Maybe it's two questions in one. Is that number one, how important is fintech in Kazakhstan's financial development? And then tied to that, Medina, is that how difficult is it to try and structure some Islamic products that's also competitive on price compared to, say, conventional products?
So first answer is fintech is very important. Country, it's overall our country is on the way of digitalization. So I mean any kind of services, including financial services, we're trying to digitalize, to see more digital financial products, including, for example, in AIC, we have a special regulation for digital assets. And also, fintech is another big part of our regulator, and we have a special regulation for fintech companies. And also our regulator establish a sandbox. We call it FinTech Lab for fintech companies. And of course, they have you can test your financial services using this sandbox. Regarding your second question, it's I think it should be the same. It could be the same rates than you're talking about conventional Islamic. But because Islamic again still under development here in Kazakhstan and AIFC, I don't think it would be cheaper. I think it would be even expensive. Some services even expensive than conventional one. And this is how the market could support the Islamic financial institutions. So if you want to see more financial products, and even if it's a bit or more expensive than the conventional one, and you already, you think that you need Islamic financial services, so you should start and you should go to these Islamic financial institutions. This is how people who would like to see more Islamic financial institutions and more Islamic financial products in Kazakhstan should work, and what they should do. This is how they could support the development of Islamic finance here in Kazakhstan.
Yeah, because it's interesting in some markets, like take the UK for example, where Islamic finance it's got quite a developed history. But to do Islamic finance transactions in the UK, albeit with the regulations and legislation in place, it's still quite expensive compared to say the conventional. Whereas if you go to other markets, like say the UAE or Saudi Arabia, obviously there's a large Muslim population and the legal system there caters for Islamic finance. But if you look at more nascent markets like Tanzania, for example, we had a stone about Tanzania, and he gave quite a nice answer in saying that it's almost like the same pari passu, but it sounds like from what you're saying, a lot more work needs to be done in order to make it on the same price level.
Yeah, yes, I think so. I think even for example, if we are saying about the sukuk issues, so this is other challenge that we have right now, because no corporate or sovereign sukuk issues yet. So because some SMEs, they'd love to issue sukuk, but they see that it's the pricing, they see the rates, and they see the rates of the conventional one. They are thinking that for them it will be very expensive. That's why they're not going. They don't go to issue bonds. The conventional bonds, but they are ready. First, they're ready to issue Islamic, so they're ready to issue sukuk. But after they see the pricing, they see how it that it's expensive. You have different commissions. You have Sharia board and other fees. They they still don't go to issue sukuk, and that's why we work. We have our it's a kind of governmental company. We call it DAMO. It means develop. So their main activity is to develop SMEs here in Kazakhstan. And just recently, we made amendments in their legislation, and now sukuk by SMEs are also subsidized by this governmental structure. This is other important part. And again, after that, we should talk about awareness, because right now we are trying to explain to the SMEs that they could issue sukuk using this subsidizing program by the governmental institution.
From what you're saying, it sounds like financial literacy, not just in Islamic but overall.
Agree. Totally agree. It's like, it's not only about Islamic, it's like, financial awareness overall.
Yeah, that's not uncommon in most like developing countries or developing economies with the nascent financial system. But Medina, as we bring the podcast to a close shortly, I just wanted to ask you, like, what do you think the future holds for Islamic finance in Kazakhstan and indeed Central Asia over the next couple of years?
I think that I see a great future of Islamic finance here in our region because I see a great potential and I see a big demand from population of our countries. They are willing to see more Islamic financial products, but we should work and we should work together because it should be like, from governmental, it should be a very hard work to to continue to develop the infrastructure, to develop the legislation, to work with if we have any kind of issues with tax and Islamic finance, we know Islamic finance products, they have a lot of issues with tax. So it should work. Again, financial market, financial companies, they should be more active also because sometimes some companies they just waiting for super comfortable conditions. So they wanted to see no barriers, no challenges. So, but they should start. They should start to work, and after that, we are as AIFC, we are as government, we're ready to support. We're ready to work with them. But if no, companies, it's really hard, to develop a market. And third, people should learn more about Islamic finance, about Islamic finance products and Islamic financial institutions.
Nice. And Medina, do you have any upcoming projects? I think you mentioned the study you're working on, but do you have any current or upcoming projects you want to share with our listeners?
So we are from our side, first of all, as I mentioned, it's our Islamic finance country report. And as soon as we launch it, we will be happy to share it. You could learn more about economy of Kazakhstan, financial market, and Islamic finance industry here in Kazakhstan. Second, we are ready to to develop our as I mentioned, Association of Islamic Finance and Business. And I think these associations should work very closely with other associations and corporations in other countries that also aims to develop Islamic finance industry. And we are ready to see more Islamic financial institutions here in AIFC. So we are ready to provide them all support. I mean, starting from the beginning. We have the regulation, if you're talking about Islamic fintech, Islamic bank, Islamic financial institutions, takaful, also we have unfortunately, there is no takaful companies here in Kazakhstan and AIFC. So we are ready to provide our support. And when we are talking about AIC, we are not talking only about Kazakhstan because it's international financial center. It means that you can cover at least Central Asian market and also CIS.
And what's the best way to find out about AIFC?
Please contact me. I will be happy to, you can contact me. You can visit our website, aifc.kz. I will be happy to provide all information about registration, authorization. And on our website, you can find also different guidelines about Islamic finance. And also you can find us on LinkedIn. We have for example, one of the page AIFC Business, where you can find a lot of useful information about AIFC and business in AIFC.
And you're also on LinkedIn as well, right?
Yes, I'm also in LinkedIn.
Okay, fantastic. I'll link all of this in the show notes if you send it to me after.
Thank
But
you.
Medina Tokhalova, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest, and hope to see you here in Kazakhstan.
All the best. Take care.
Thank you.